Imagine slashing your biggest monthly bill, your housing cost. Maybe like cutting it down to almost nothing. Or even getting paid to live where you live.
Right. And doing that while at the same time, you're building some serious long-term wealth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It sounds almost too good to be true for a lot of people, you know, like something only really experienced investors could pull off.
But there's this strategy. It's actually pretty accessible, particularly here in the US. And it's especially good for folks maybe just starting out who don't have a ton of cash lying around.
Yeah, it's called house hacking. And it can be a real game changer.
It really can. House hacking basically flips the script on homeownership. Instead of your house just being this money pit you pour cash into every month.
Just to have a roof over your head.
Right. It turns it into an asset that actually generates revenue for you. The basic idea is you buy a property, you live in part of it, one unit, maybe just a room, and you rent out the rest.
And a big part of making this work, especially for first-time buyers who see those huge down payments for investment properties and just think, no way. Well, it often comes down to using the right financial tools.
Definitely. And in the US, one of the most powerful tools for this is the FHA loan.
So that's what we're diving into today. We want to get into the nitty-gritty of house hacking, not just the concept, but why it's such a powerful way to build wealth.
And how it actually works, boots on the ground. And specifically, how loans like the FHA make it so much more achievable, how they lower that barrier to entry for people who might feel totally priced out otherwise.
We really dug into a lot of material for this deep dive. We've got detailed guides from like the big real estate investment websites, breakdowns of loan rules.
Yeah, real world case studies too, with actual numbers.
Yeah.
And even looked at what people are saying on forums like Reddit, the good, the bad, the ugly of doing this day to day.
So our mission here is pretty straightforward. We want to boil down all those insights, all that practical info.
We want to give you a really solid understanding of how house hacking, especially using an FHA loan, actually works. What the potential is, what steps you might need to think about. Basically give you the essential knowledge on this strategy.
Okay, let's unpack it. Starting right at the beginning, what is house hacking really at its core?
At its absolute core, it's buying a residential property, could be a single family house, could be a duplex, triplex, even a 4-unit building.
Okay.
Making it your main home by living in one part of it and then renting out the other parts. The key thing is you're the owner and you live there and you're the landlord, all in the same building.
And the main goal, what are you shooting for when you do this?
The biggest financial driver, the main goal is using that rent money you collect from the other units or rooms to cover most or, ideally all of your own housing costs.
So mortgage, taxes, insurance.
Exactly. Mortgage principal, interest, property taxes, homeowner's insurance, maybe even some utilities or upkeep. The absolute dream scenario, and it is possible, is the rent covers everything. So you live for free.
Or maybe even make a little extra cash each month.
Or even generate positive cash flow right away.
Yeah.
And that just frees up so much of your money, helps you get towards financial freedom much faster.
But it's not just about living cheap, is it? Our sources kept hammering this point. It's a serious wealth building strategy. How does that side of it work?
That's such a crucial point. Cutting housing costs is huge, obviously. Huge immediate benefit. But the real long-term power comes from using real estate as an investment.
Right.
Real estate, historically, tends to appreciate, go up in value. We saw some pretty compelling numbers in the sources, like U.S. national home prices up over 400% since the late 80s.
Wow. 408%, I think it was.
Yeah, something staggering like that. And even after big hits like the 2008 crash, the market bounced back significantly, up like 119% from the low point by late 2024.
Yeah.
When you own the property, you get to capture that growth.
Unlike renting, where your rent just goes up and you build nothing.
Exactly. Renters don't build any equity or wealth through their housing payments. Owners do.
And speaking of equity, when you house hack, your tenants are essentially helping you build that equity.
Precisely. Every month, part of your mortgage payment goes to pay down the loan principal. When your tenant's rent helps make that payment, well, they're indirectly paying down your debt for you.
So your ownership stake grows faster.
Your ownership stake grows, your net worth increases. It's a basic principle of using leverage in real estate, and house hacking puts it to work for you immediately.
Plus, the potential for actual cash flow, money in your pocket each month.
Yeah, that's the goal once you get the numbers right. You collect the rent, you pay all the bills for the property mortgage, taxes, insurance, setting aside money for repairs.
We'll get into those expenses later.
Right. But anything left over after all that, that's positive cash flow, actual income hitting your bank account every month. It turns your home into like a mini income stream.
And if you're new to investing, this sounds like learning by fire, almost.
Oh, absolutely. House hacking is probably one of the best hands-on ways to learn real estate investing. You have to figure out how to analyze deals, understand rent markets, screen tenants, deal with people,
Handle leaky faucets at midnight.
handle leaky faucets, manage repairs, understand the money side of things. You're basically running a small business from day one. The learning curve? Steep, but incredibly valuable. You really do learn while you earn.
And for a lot of people, this isn't just a one-and-done thing, right? It's like the first rung on the ladder to owning more properties.
That's a really common path we saw described. Many of these owner-occupant loans like FHA, you only have to live there for a set time. Often it's just 1 year.
Okay.
So after that year, you can move out. Rent out the unit you're living in. Now that whole property is bringing in rent. Cash flowing, hopefully.
And you take that experience, that cash flow.
Exactly. And the equity you've built, and you go do it again. Buy another multi-unit, live in one unit, rent out the others, repeat the process. Over time, you can systematically build up a portfolio of several rental properties this way.
Then there are the tax advantages. Owning rental property comes with some nice tax breaks.
Yeah, they can definitely add up. The sources mention several key ones for landlords. For the part of the property you rent out, you can deduct a lot of the operating costs.
Like what kind of costs?
Well, property taxes, the insurance premiums, mortgage interest for the rental portion, repairs and maintenance costs, utilities if you pay them, pest control, landscaping, even fees if you hire a property manager.
Okay.
And potentially, there is a deduction for qualified business income, too, depending on your situation.
What about depreciation? That's a big one people talk about with real estate.
Depreciation is huge. Basically, the IRS lets you deduct a part of the building's cost, not the land, just the building over 27.5 years for residential rentals.
Even if the property value is actually going up.
Exactly. It's a non-cash expense.
Right.
You didn't actually spend that money that year, but it lowers your taxable rental income, so you pay less tax even while the property might be appreciating. And then if you eventually sell, profits on properties held over a year. Capital gains usually get taxed at lower rates than your regular income. Plus, there are more advanced things like 1031 exchanges to defer taxes if you reinvest.
And one last benefit, especially relevant now, real estate as a hedge against inflation.
That's a really important one. Inflation eats away at the value of cash, but hard assets like real estate, their value tends to rise with inflation.
And rents usually go up too, right?
Rents tend to rise over time as well, often keeping pace with or even beating inflation. So your investment holds its real value, and the income it produces keeps up with rising costs. It helps protect your purchasing power.
Okay, so that covers the why. Really compelling reasons. Let's talk about the what. What kinds of properties actually work for house hacking? It's not just duplexes, right?
No, not at all. The strategy is pretty flexible. The classic house hack is definitely a multi-unit building. You know, a duplex with 2 units, a triplex with 3, or a quadplex with 4. You live in one, rent the others. Simple, multiple income streams.
But you mentioned single-family homes too. How does that work?
Yeah, that's often the easiest way to start. You just buy a regular house and rent out the extra bedrooms to roommates.
Okay, like housemates.
Exactly. You share the kitchen, living room, that kind of thing. It usually costs less upfront than buying a multi-unit, and financing can be simpler, more like a standard home purchase.
And ADUs, accessory dwelling units, those seem to be popping up more.
They really are. With housing shortages in many areas, cities are making it easier to add these secondary units. Think like converting a garage into an apartment, finishing a basement unit, or building a little cottage in the backyard.
A granny flat, sometimes they call it.
Right. So you could live in the main house and rent the ADU, or the other way around. It lets you generate rental income from a property that might have started as just a single-family home.
And the sources even mention some, like, super low effort options.
Yeah, kind of interesting. If you don't want the hassle of residential tenants, you can actually house hack by renting out storage space.
Just empty space.
Yeah. Extra room in your garage, attic, basement, maybe even just a patch of land. People will pay to store furniture, cars, RVs, boats, whatever. Much less management involved than having tenants living there.
Okay, so that gives us a really good picture of what house hacking is and all the reasons why it's so attractive. Now, let's zoom in on that tool you mentioned, the key that unlocks this for a lot of people without huge savings, the FHA loan. Why is it such a good fit?
It really comes down to how FHA loans are designed. They're backed by the government, and the whole point is to help people buy homes, especially first-time buyers. They do this by making the requirements, well, more flexible than typical conventional loans.
And the headline feature,
The absolute headline feature for house hackers is the super low minimum down payment.
which is 3.5%.
It's just 3.5% of the purchase price. That is massive. Conventional loans for multi-units, they've recently allowed 5% down sometimes, which is better than it used to be.
But 3.5% is still lower.
But 3.5% is still the lowest entry point for cash needed up front. The sources estimated that for a typical house hack deal, the total cash you might need for the down payment and all the closing costs could be somewhere between, say, $5,000 and $30,000.
Which is a lot more achievable for most people than saving up 10 or 20% plus closing.
Exactly. Saving maybe 10 grand, 20 grand, that feels possible. Saving 50, 60, 100 grand, that feels impossible for many first-time buyers looking at multi-units.
So, okay, low down payment is huge. What else do you need to qualify for an FHA loan on a multi-unit property? What are the main hurdles?
Well, like any mortgage, they're going to look at your income. Is it stable? Do you have a history? You'll need your W-2s, tax returns, maybe 1099s if you're self-employed. Pretty standard stuff.
But there's a twist with multi-units, right, regarding income.
Yes, and this is another key advantage. With FHA loans on multi-unit properties, the lender can actually use the potential rent from the units you won't be living in to help you qualify for a bigger loan.
How do they figure out that potential rent? Is it just a guess?
No, it's a formal process. It involves a specific appraisal type, often called a 1025 appraisal, or small residential income property appraiser report.
Okay.
The FHA appraiser looks at the property, its condition, and what similar units are renting for in that specific area. They come up with a fair market rent estimate for all the units.
Even the one you'll live in?
They estimate rent for all of them. Then the lender can typically take 75% of the rent from the units you won't occupy and add that to your regular income for qualifying purposes.
Ah, so that boosts your borrowing power significantly.
Hugely. It can make the difference between qualifying for a duplex or triplex versus only qualifying for a single-family home based on your job income alone.
What about credit scores? Are FHA loans tough on credit?
Generally, no. They're known for being more flexible. You usually need a median FICO score of at least 580 to get that 3.5% down payment.
580. Okay.
If your score is lower, maybe down to 500, you might still get an FHA loan, but you probably need to put 10% down instead.
And higher scores are always better, presumably.
Oh, yeah. While 580 might get you in the door for the low down payment, a higher score generally means a better interest rate, maybe an easier underwriting process. They'll also look at your credit history for big issues like bankruptcies or foreclosures. There are waiting periods for those.
And DTI. Debt to income ratio. How much debt you have versus your income.
DTI is super important for any mortgage. It compares your total monthly debt payments, mortgage, car loans, student loans, credit cards to your gross monthly income.
There are two types, right? Front end and back end.
Yeah. Front end is just the housing payment, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, PITI. Back end is PITI plus all your other monthly debt payments. For FHA, if your score is, say, 580 to 619, the limits are typically around 38% front end and 45% back end.
Okay.
But if your FICO score is 620 or higher, the automated systems might approve much higher DTIs, sometimes even up to like 67% back end if you have other strengths like cash reserves.
And crucially, that rental income helps here too.
Massively. Adding 75% of the projected rent to your income makes your DTI ratios look much better, allowing you to qualify for that larger loan needed for a multi-unit property.
Okay, now there's a really specific rule that comes up with FHA if you're buying bigger properties, 3 or 4 units.
Yeah.
You called it the self-sufficiency test.
Yes, the self-sufficiency test. This is unique to FHA loans on 3 and 4 unit properties only. Duplexes don't have this test.
Okay, only for triplexes and quadplexes, what is it?
It's basically an extra safety check. The rule says that 75% of the total potential gross rent from the entire property, all units, including yours, based on that 125 appraisal,
75% of the total potential rent.
must be equal to or more than the property's total monthly mortgage payment. And that payment includes principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and any HOA dues. So PITI plus HOA.
Why 75%? Why not 100% of the rent?
Good question. The 75% is essentially a built-in buffer for vacancies and maintenance. It acknowledges that you probably won't have all units rented 100% of the time and things break, right?
Right, you need money set aside.
So by requiring 75% of the potential rent to cover 100% of the mortgage payment, FHA ensures the property itself has a good chance of paying its own way, even with bumps in the road.
Can you give an example of how that calculation works?
Yeah, the source had a good one. Imagine a $400,000 triplex. The appraiser says the total potential rent for all 3 units is $4,500 a month.
Okay.
75% of $4,500 is $3,375. Now, let's say the total monthly PITI payment for that property is $3,370.
Just under $3,375.
Exactly. Since 3,075% of rent is more than $3,370 the PITI, it passes the test, just barely. If the rent was a bit lower or the payment a bit higher, it would fail. And you couldn't get an FHA loan for that specific 3 or 4 unit property.
Wow. Okay. That test is a really critical detail for anyone looking at 3 or 4 units with FHA. So let's quickly recap the pros and cons of using FHA specifically for a multi-unit house hack.
Okay, pros. The biggest pro, obviously, is that super low 3.5% down payment. Opens so many doors.
Game changer.
Definitely. Interest rates on FHA loans can also be quite competitive, sometimes lower than conventional for similar scenarios because of that government backing. Underwriting is generally more flexible, lower credit scores, maybe higher DTIs accepted. And there's the FHA 203K loan option, which lets you finance renovation costs into the mortgage. Huge if the place needs work, though worth noting, not every lender offers 203K.
Right. Okay, what about the downsides, the trade-offs?
Well, the big one for investors is you have to live there. Owner occupancy is mandatory, usually for at least a year. You can't use FHA to buy a pure investment property you won't live in.
Makes sense.
The main financial drawback is mortgage insurance premium MIP. FHA loans require it. You pay a fee up front, usually rolled into the loan, and then you pay a monthly premium with your mortgage payment. And here's the kicker. If you put down less than 10%, like that 3.5% minimum, you pay that monthly MIP for the entire life of the loan.
For 30 years. Wow.
Yeah, potentially. That adds to your monthly cost and eats into your cash flow compared to a conventional loan where the private mortgage insurance, PMI, can eventually be canceled. If you do put 10% or more down with FHA, the MIP usually drops off after 11 years.
Still a long time. Any other cons?
The FHA appraisal can sometimes be a bit stricter than conventional ones. They have minimum property standards for safety and soundness, things like checking for peeling paint in older homes because of lead rules. This is good for the buyer, but
sellers might not like it.
Sometimes sellers might prefer a cleaner offer with conventional financing if they think the FHA appraisal might flag issues or cause delays.
Okay, so this begs the question, how does a conventional loan stack up for a multi-unit house hack? You mentioned 5% down is now possible there too.
Right. Conventional multi-unit owner-occupied can now go down to 5%. Still higher than FHA's 3.5%, but closer. Big differences. Conventional loans do not have that self-sufficiency test for 3 to 4 units.
That could make qualifying easier sometimes.
It could, especially if rents are tight relative to the mortgage. However, interest rates on conventional multi-unit loans are often noticeably higher than FHA rates.
Okay.
And a big hurdle for conventional multi-unit is the reserve requirement. Lenders usually want to see you have 6 months worth of mortgage payments, PITI, in the bank, or accessible retirement funds after you close.
6 months. That's a chunk of change.
It is. FHA reserve requirements are typically much less stringent.
So FHA versus conventional.
Yeah.
It really sounds like there's no single best answer. It depends entirely on your specific situation.
Absolutely. Your credit score, how much cash you have for down payment and those reserves, the numbers on the specific property, especially for that FHA self-sufficiency test, and what rates lenders are offering you for each option.
You really need to compare them side by side.
Yeah. And talking to a good lender who understands house hacking and both loan types is key. They can run the scenarios for you.
All right. So let's say someone's listening. They're intrigued. They think, okay, maybe this house hacking thing is for me. What are the actual steps? How do you go from interested to actually owning a property? The sources laid out a pretty clear path.
Yeah, they did. A good roadmap. Step 1, before anything else, figure out your budget. Seriously, what can you realistically afford?
How do you do that?
Look at property prices in the areas you like. Use Zillow, Realtor.com. Then play with online mortgage calculators. Get a rough idea of monthly payments at different price points, remembering to factor in estimates for property taxes and insurance, too.
Step 2, plan for the cash you need up front.
Right. Based on that budget and the loan type you're aiming for, FHA's 3.5% being key here, calculate the down payment, but don't forget closing costs.
Those always bite you.
They can add thousands more. So figure out the total cash need down payment plus closing costs. The sources suggested that $5K to $30K total range for typical deals. Saving that amount becomes your first tangible goal.
Okay, step 3, this seems critical for making sure a deal works. Understand the local market rents.
Absolutely vital. You have to know what you can realistically charge for rent. Research is key here. Look at comparable rentals online, Zillow, Rentometer, Apartments.com. If you're thinking roommates, check Roomster or local ads.
Or talk to a pro.
Even better, connect with a realtor who knows investors in that area. They'll have the best real-time scoop on rents and vacancy rates. Getting this number right is crucial for your analysis later.
Step 4, get pre-approved for your loan.
Yes. You need that pre-approval letter before you start making offers. Find a lender, ideally one familiar with FHA, and multi-units tell them your house hacking plan. They'll check your finances and tell you how much you can likely borrow.
Show sellers you're serious.
Exactly. And at the same time, find yourself an investor-friendly realtor, someone who gets this strategy. They can help find properties, analyze deals, guide you on offers. Bigger Pockets is a good place to find agents and lenders like this.
Okay, step 5. This sounds like where the rubber meets the road. Running the numbers like a pro.
This is probably the most important step, your due diligence. For every property you seriously consider, you need to build a cash flow projection.
Simple formula, right? Income minus expenses.
Basic formula is simple. Cash flow equals income expenses. Income is the rent you expect to collect from the units you're not living in, using that market research. Expenses. That's where you need to be really thorough.
More than just the mortgage payment.
Way more. Obviously, your PITI principal, interest, taxes, insurance. But then you must budget for other stuff. Property taxes if not escrowed, insurance if not escrowed, maybe HOA dues, utilities if you pay them, advertising costs when units are empty. And the big ones, maintenance and capital expenditures.
Okay, explain the difference there again. Maintenance versus CapEx.
Maintenance is the ongoing, smaller stuff. Fixing a leaky tap, painting between tenants, minor repairs. Capital expenditures, CapEx, are the big, expensive, less frequent, but totally unavoidable things.
Like a new roof?
Exactly. New roof, new furnace or AC, major plumbing or electrical work, new water heater. These cost thousands, sometimes tens of thousands. They will happen eventually.
So you have to save for them even if nothing's broken right now.
You absolutely have to budget for them every single month, even if you manage the property yourself. Setting aside maybe 10%, 15% of the gross rent just for maintenance and CapEx combined is a common rule of thumb. This detailed calculation tells you if a deal actually works financially.
Does it produce positive cash flow? Or at least cut your living costs dramatically after accounting for everything, including those future big hits?
Precisely. That's the analysis you need to do.
Okay, you find a property. The numbers work, you're pre-approved. Step 6 is making it happen. Execution.
Right. Now you work with your realtor. Schedule showings, look at properties. Your realtor should help you analyze them, pull comps, CMAs to check the value, advise on making an offer.
Then you negotiate, hopefully get accepted.
Get under contract. Then comes the closing period. Inspections happen, the FHA appraisal gets done, including that special 2025 report, and the self-sufficiency test if it's 3-4 units. You finalize the loan with your lender. Lots of communication needed here.
And then you close, get the keys.
Then you close. You own the property.
Step 7 shifts to the tenant side, setting up proper lease agreements.
Non-negotiable. Every source stressed this. You need a formal, written, legally sound lease for every tenant, even if it's your buddy renting a room.
No handshake deals.
Absolutely not. That's asking for trouble. The lease protects you and the tenant. It clearly spells out the rules. Rent amount, due date, security deposit, pets, smoking, guests, repairs, everything.
Should you download one online?
You can, but getting a professional lease is better. Maybe from a local real estate attorney, a property manager, or even your investor-friendly realtor might have a good state-specific one. Make sure it follows all your local and state laws.
Okay. And the final step, step 8, managing the property ongoing.
Right. Once you own it and have tenants, you gotta manage it. 2 main ways to go. Self-manage or hire a property manager.
Self-managed means doing everything yourself.
Pretty much. Collecting rent, handling repairs, finding tenants, screening them, dealing with complaints, budgeting, all of it. There are tools now, like Zillow Rental Manager or Avail, that can help automate some things like rent collection, but it takes time and effort. You have to be willing to be hands-on.
And the alternative is outsourcing, hiring a pro.
Yeah, hiring a property management company. They handle most of that day-to-day stuff for you. Tenant screening, leases, rent collection, coordinating repairs, dealing with issues.
But it costs money, right?
It does. Typically 8% to 12% of the monthly rent collected, sometimes extra fees for placing new tenants or overseeing big projects. It cuts into your profit margin, your cash flow.
So why do it?
It buys you time and peace of mind. If you're super busy, live far away, don't like confrontation, or plan to own multiple properties, it can be well worth the cost. It really depends on your personality, your time, and your goals.
Okay, that roadmap is super helpful. To make this all feel more real, let's look at that case study you mentioned from the sources. Carrie's duplex purchase in Indianapolis.
Yeah, this was a great example because it lays out the actual numbers and shows that initial benefit, even if the cash flow isn't positive right away on paper.
So Carrie bought a duplex for $155,000, 2 units.
Right. And interestingly, while we've focused a lot on FHA, Carrie actually used a 5% down conventional loan for this deal, which just highlights that the house hacking strategy works with different loans. The principles, the analysis, the management, they're the same whether you use FHA or conventional.
Got it. So how much cash did Carrie need to bring to the table?
His total out-of-pocket cash was about $13,850. That covered his 5% down payment, which was around $7,750. Plus, he spent about $3,000 on some immediate rehab work the place needed, and then closing costs were roughly $3,100.
So under $14,000 cash to buy a $155,000 asset. That's leverage.
That's exactly leverage in action.
What were his estimated monthly expenses for the whole property, assuming he managed it himself?
The total estimated monthly nut was $1,199. That included $790 for mortgage principal and interest, $129 for property taxes, $62 for insurance, and importantly, he budgeted $128 every month for future maintenance and capex.
Okay, $1,109 total expenses. What about income? He lived in one side, rented the other.
Correct. At the time, the market rent for the other unit was estimated at $900 per month, so his initial rental income was $900.
All right, let's do the math. Income, $900. Expenses, $1,109. That's negative $209 per month on paper. So he was losing money.
Technically, yes, the property's cash flow calculation was negative $209. But here's where it gets really interesting, and you see the real house hacking benefit.
Okay.
That negative $209, that was essentially his entire cost of living. He was living in one half of a duplex for about $200 a month.
Whoa, okay. Compared to renting a similar place.
Which might have cost him easily $1,000, maybe $1,200 a month or more in that market. So was he losing $209? Or was he saving maybe $800 to $1,000 plus every single month on his personal housing cost?
That completely reframes it. His goal wasn't instant profit. It was drastically cutting his living expenses.
Exactly. Freeing up hundreds, maybe $1,000 of his own income each month for other things. That's the immediate win.
So what happened long term? The source projected out 5 years, right? How did the wealth building side look?
That's where it gets even better. Over 5 years, the projection showed Carrie building about $19,782 in equity just from paying down the mortgage principal, mostly with the tenant's rent money.
Okay. Nearly $20 in equity pay down.
Plus, they estimated the property would appreciate by about $15,500 in value over those 5 years, based on typical market growth.
So add those together.
You get a total estimated gain in his net worth of $35,282 over 5 years, all from that initial cash investment of under $14,000.
$35,000 gain on a $14,000 investment. What's the ROI on that?
The return on his initial cash invested was projected at 254% over 5 years. Pretty incredible.
That's huge. How did that compare to just renting?
The source had a table showing it starkly. Renting for 5 years might cost someone over $66,000 with absolutely zero wealth built through housing. Carrie, house hacking. His net cost over 5 years was estimated around $12,500, 209 month 60, but he gained over $35,000 in net worth.
Massive difference in financial outcome.
Night and day. 0% ROI versus 254% ROI.
And what about after he lived there for the required time? Could he move out and make even more?
That's the next step in the strategy. After his 1-year owner occupancy period was up, he could move out and rent both sides of the duplex.
Okay.
The source suggested rents might have risen to $1,000 per side by then, so $2,000 total monthly income. Subtract his $1,109 in expenses.
That leaves almost $900 a month in positive cash flow.
Roughly $891 a month positive cash flow based on those numbers. So now the property isn't just saving him money on living costs, it's actively putting cash in his pocket every month while it keeps appreciating and building equity. And he's free to go house hack another property.
That case study really drives home the potential.
Yeah.
But it also makes me think, this can't all be sunshine and roses, right? There have to be downsides, challenges.
Oh, absolutely. And the sources, especially the discussions on Reddit, were very upfront about this. House hacking is work. It's not passive income, at least not initially.
What are some of the main challenges people face?
One big one is just the lifestyle impact. Privacy. You're living right next door or maybe even sharing space with your tenants.
Yeah, that could be awkward.
Less privacy, you might need to be more conscious of noise. You might feel like you can never really relax because you're the landlord on site. It takes a certain personality and maybe some compromises.
And being the landlord itself, that sounds like a job.
It is a job, whether you do it yourself or hire it out. Things break, toilets clog, heaters die in winter, roofs leak.
Yeah.
That maintenance and CapEx budget we talked about, it's not theoretical. You will spend that money, often when it's least convenient.
And dealing with tenant issues, late rent, complaints.
Yep. You have to chase down late rent sometimes. Mediate disputes between tenants. Enforce the rules in your lease. Handle move-ins, move-outs. Screen new applicants. It requires patience, communication skills, sometimes tough conversations. And you need to know the local landlord-tenant laws. One source bluntly asked, "Are you actually prepared for all this?"
That Reddit thread advice about tenant relations sounded pretty direct. Keep it professional.
Very direct, very practical.
Yeah.
The consensus from experienced house hackers was clear. Treat it like a business. Tenants are not your friends, and friends generally don't make good tenants.
Set boundaries.
Set clear boundaries from day one. Communicate professionally. Don't let emotions cloud business decisions. And screen tenants thoroughly. Background checks, credit checks, income verification, references. Don't just go with your gut, as one person warned.
Clear expectations in the lease are key too, it sounds like. Parking, noise.
Everything. Parking, guests, cleaning shared areas, quiet hours. Spell it out up front to avoid conflicts later.
There was also that one really serious story someone shared.
Yeah, that was a tough one. A contributor described dealing with a roommate who unfortunately passed away in the property. It highlighted that being a landlord, especially living on site, can sometimes involve dealing with really serious, unexpected, and emotionally difficult situations that require careful professional handling, possibly involving legal steps. It's not always just about fixing sinks.
Definitely puts things in perspective. And finally, financial risks. Real estate isn't guaranteed, right?
No investment is guaranteed. Big unexpected repairs can wipe out your savings if you haven't budgeted well for CapEx. Vacancies happen periods with no rent coming in, but the mortgage still needs to be paid. And markets fluctuate. While real estate tends to be less volatile than stocks, values can go down, like in 2008. Interest rates can go up. You need to be prepared for uncertainties and have some financial cushion.
So, okay, weighing the challenges, it sounds like house hacking takes real commitment, real work. But the potential rewards, as we saw with Carrie, are pretty significant. And it doesn't have to stop at one property.
That's the really exciting part for many people, the ability to scale. That first house hack, using maybe an FHA loan with low money down, living there for a year, learning the ropes, it's like investor training wheels, but you're actually building equity.
And then you take the training wheels off.
Exactly. You move out after the required time, rent out your old unit. Now you have this cash flowing asset. That income, plus the equity, plus the experience, it puts you in a much stronger position to go buy the next property.
And repeat the process.
Repeat the process. House hack property number 2, live there, move out, rent it fully. Now you have 2 cash flowing rentals. This is how people methodically build up a substantial portfolio over time, using each property to help leverage into the next one.
Okay, so let's try to boil this all down. If someone listening wanted the key takeaways from this deep dive on house hacking, especially with an FHA loan, what would they be?
I think there are a few core lessons. First, house hacking, especially using tools like FHA loans, is a totally legitimate and powerful way to fight high housing costs and start building real wealth through real estate. It makes property investing accessible.
But it's not just a gimmick.
Not at all. Second, you must do your homework financially. Run the numbers meticulously on every potential deal. Estimate income conservatively, budget for all expenses aggressively, especially maintenance, and that crucial CapEx for future big repairs. Don't skip that.
Understood. What else?
Third, the people side matters. Screen tenants rigorously. Background checks, credit, income, the works, and maintain a professional relationship. Clear lease, clear boundaries. Treat it like the business it is.
And finally,
think long term. The immediate win might be living cheaper, which is great, but the real power comes from holding the asset over time, letting tenants pay down your mortgage, benefiting from appreciation, and potentially using it as a stepping stone to build a larger portfolio. It's an investment strategy for your future.
It really changes the whole equation of your home, doesn't it? From just being a place you spend money on to something that could actually make you money and build wealth.
Precisely. You're turning your basic need for shelter into an engine for financial growth. And resources like BiggerPockets, which we looked at, are great places to keep learning, connect with other investors, and find local experts if you need them.
So what does this all mean? Well, it means the idea that the place you live could be one of your biggest assets, maybe even an income source. It's not just a fantasy. With the right approach, using tools like house hacking and maybe an FHA loan, and being ready for the landlord responsibilities, you can genuinely change your financial path. You can shift from just paying rent or a mortgage month after month to actively building real lasting wealth through property.
It's using a major expense as a foundation for building financial independence. A powerful shift in perspective.
So what stands out to you about the idea of turning your own home into an investment powerhouse? Something to think about, maybe explore a little further.